It's Friday, February the 16th, 2024. We are in the season of Lent. And our text today is 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 1 to 5. We met the elder statesman Daniel in the lectionary reading from Daniel chapter 9 yesterday. He was a man of deep conviction and lived out his life anchored to the first pillar in the journey of Lent, the pillar of prayer. Today, we're going to meet a young man in the New Testament, and his name is Timothy. He was born in a small village in Lystra in the country of Turkey. His mother was a Jewish single woman, and her name was Eunice. There was also grandmother Lois, and this family unit of 3 generations lived together. Timothy's father was a Greek and did not seem involved in his life. Times must have been difficult for these 2 women because Timothy was now an adult and he had never had the rite of circumcision. And that's what every 8-day-old Jewish boy was circumcised. This mother and grandmother, though, were content to focus on what they had and not what they never had. This made it easy for Timothy to know that he was a gift from God to them, and they made good on this opportunity to teach him about God. Paul had to admit that Timothy was rooted and grounded in understanding who God was because of the teaching of his grandmother Lois and the nurturing of God's word in his life by his mother Eunice. I imagine Timothy to be a quiet and shy teenager. And when he met Paul, he saw him as the father he never knew. Shortly before Paul and Timothy met, Paul had broken up the relationship he and his mentor Barnabas had. Paul had been impatient with another young man named John Mark because John Mark did not complete a journey. Barnabas was a person of second chances and wanted John Mark to try again to take a second trip. Paul objected, and Paul and Barnabas parted ways. Then Paul met Timothy, and together with another young man named Titus, the threesome traveled together, visiting the Christian communities and encouraging the people. Let's fast forward, and we find Paul in the lectionary text today, giving Timothy some last-minute words of encouragement on how to lead the communities. Paul, though, is in prison and on his deathbed. He no longer wants to fight for his rights. He's ready to die. He's about to pass the baton to Timothy, but just before he can, there's one thing that he has left undone. He needs to repair his relationship with John Mark. He had considered the young man, John Mark, to be useless, but now, on his own deathbed, he wanted to see John Mark because he, Paul, he's all alone and he is in need of help. Paul encouraged Timothy to not hold back, but share the message of the gospel with intensity, but also keep on your watch. Be sure to challenge, to warn the communities to never quit. Just keep life simple. The gospel can become like junk food. On Ash Wednesday, a number of faith communities offer their congregants drive-through ashes to go. Be careful you're not taking a quick glance at God, yet your eyes are gazing at the things that tickle your fancy. I need to read that again. Be careful you're not taking a quick glance at God, yet your eyes are gazing at the things that tickle your fancy. Paul's words to Timothy required fasting from. That is the second pillar on the journey of Lent. Let us fast from wanting to be Lord of our own lives. Let us fast from holding on to past hurts. Let us fast from negative attitudes we have about other people. Let us fast from complaining about the hard times we are experiencing. Instead, let us accept the hard times along with the good times, knowing that we are working for God, who accomplishes all things according to his plan. Well, Jennifer, that's my story today.
Oh, thank you for storytelling and context and drawing us into the conversation again about another pillar for Lent.
Mm.
As I'm thinking of yesterday's first pillar of Lent, the pillar of prayer, I'd like to invite those who are listening to check out the Tapestry Ministries website, where we have a daily prayer for those who don't have practice with what it means to be involved in a pillar of prayer. There's a great prayer there each day, as well as a beautiful photograph that takes us into that conversation with God. And the audio recordings of these conversations will be available there as well. But that second pillar of prayer, fasting, you've given us two great story examples, both a positive and a less positive, negative example of what happens when I don't fast from thinking I'm Lord of my own life, or when I don't fast from negative thoughts. Eunice and Lois are an example of choosing to fast. We see in Timothy's life the consequences of their faith. They're choosing to fast from speaking negatively about him or about his dad. We don't see any of that in the text. It's just not there. There's just Paul's encouragement, which means Timothy became a man of faith because of his mother and his grandmother. And Paul, dear Paul, blessed Paul, oh, I'm so grateful for him and for being able to see the Apostle Paul as a real human. And he spoke negatively about John Mark, and he broke up a great friendship, a great co-laboring, a great mentorship with Barnabas because of his unwillingness to zip his lip, to fast. And so those to me are two great contrasting examples of the invitation to fast. Now, often we talk about Lent as a fast from foods, and usually silly foods, ones that we want to keep forever, but really should be letting go of. How many years have I fasted from coffee? Really, a lot. And the invitation to take that fasting to a deeper place, to let go of my faith conversations as fast food and instead go to the slow and steady work of faith building through the process of Lent. So those are some of the things I'm noticing this morning.
Yeah, put in the word fast. We're, like you said, some of us think it's coffee and those kinds of things. But based on this text, it's deeper than that. We want to check out where our eyes are. Are we just glancing at God? Have you ever thought about that? Do you give God that instant quick look and then we walk away as if we never noticed? And we need to be sure of where our eyes are. And Timothy's mother and grandmother show us that in spite of what the community would have said, single mother, they put in Timothy the things that gave him the courage to succeed over not having a father. It wasn't his fault, and they didn't blame him. They blessed him instead.
What a gift. Thank you for this conversation this morning, Gloria.
Mhm.
And thank you to those of you who have joined us for another episode of Manna at the Tap. Might I encourage you to press that like button or the subscribe button or to share this with your friends or family. And if you share it, I'd encourage you to include a little bit of what you notice so that there's a personal connection.
Mhm.
Again, thanks for being with us for this episode. See you tomorrow.